No matter how brave a person is, it is inevitable that he or she will have at least one or more fears. Fear is a natural emotion that arises from the perception of danger or threat and triggers the human survival instinct. If there were no such emotion, no one would be afraid of anything, so they would do whatever they wanted and, as you can imagine, the world would be in complete chaos. The subject of this video is the most bizarre phobias, in which the feeling of fear reaches irrational levels, affecting daily life and turning into intense anxiety. Before I go into these phobias, I would like to remind you that if you subscribe to the channel and like the video to reach 1,000 subscribers, you will be a great support. Fear of clowns. Although the main purpose of clowns is to make people, especially children, laugh and put a smile on their faces, the truth is that some of us are afraid of them. We know that even famous brands choose clowns as mascots to attract children, but that doesn't stop some of us from still avoiding clowns. The unofficial name for the fear of clowns is coulrophobia, and it occurs in 1 in 10 people. People severely affected by this phobia may react to the sight of a clown by trembling, breathing rapidly, or screaming. But why is this anxiety so common? It's 2016, the months when creepy clown sightings are trending. Police in the US and the UK are inundated with reports of scary clowns. Unidentified people dressed in clown costumes and wearing creepy face makeup appear out of nowhere and scare everyone in their path. Although the police have warned those who participate in this new trend on social media that they could be fined, the trend continues to spread rapidly. An interactive map has even been made in the United States of America about the points of spread. At the time of the incidents, images of clowns suddenly appearing on roadsides or in wooded areas at night were being shared all over social media, and similar complaints were constantly increasing. When the complaints came from countries such as Canada, France, and Australia, the seriousness of the matter increased even more. Fortunately, everything returned to normal after a while, but even today it is not known exactly why such a phenomenon emerged. Some say it's to harm the art of clowning, some say it's to increase interest in future movies, some say it's just to create a buzz on social media. The point is that whatever the reason, these events have been one of the reasons why the phobia has become more widespread. In fact, the main reasons for the widespread spread of the fear of clowns have been the influence of many horror movies about clowns, starting with the Joker, the villainous character that appeared in Batman comics in the 1940s. According to experts, our brains use an incredibly fast and complex system to perceive and recognize human faces. Bright colors, distorted features, big ball-like noses, and exaggerated features cause our brains to warn us that this is not a natural face when we see a clown, and eventually this warning turns into a feeling of fear in some of us. As Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, wrote in his 1919 essay, The Uncanny, some things seem normal but are in fact strange, frightening, and uncanny to us, and this fear can be associated with things that are familiar from elsewhere, but strangely frightening, for example zombies or humanoid robots. These all have familiar but disturbing characteristics and leave people with a strange feeling. This is why clowns are a perfect example for this definition, as the layers of paint on their faces make it difficult to read their true emotions. The history of these people who take on this image, which some fear and others enjoy, is even more interesting. Clowns, jokers, and jesters used to entertain kings in palaces. While they were doing this, they observed what was going on around them very well, and when they made jokes, they did not try to hide or conceal it in any way. Imagine that they freely made all kinds of jokes with the kings that everyone could not stand upright in front of them, and they did not hesitate to do so because the king kept them with them for this. For example, a jester would easily tell the king how big his belly was because he ate too much, imitate them and other nobles in the palace, do different juggling, and even play intellectual games with the kings when necessary. Think about it, who wouldn't be offended by someone who could say whatever he wanted even to the king back then? Mirror fear. Imagine that at some point in your life, because of a dream you had, a story you listened to, or a movie you watched, you got this phobia, and from that moment on you avoided all mirrors, You didn't want to see your own reflection anywhere. I think this is quite troubling, even if we don't know it as much as people with phobias. For example, the reason for this fear may be that we think that our image will move when we look in the mirror, and this thought triggers our subconscious. There are also people who have created this phobia for themselves over time, and it's because they don't like the way they look and are afraid to face themselves in the mirror. Low self-esteem or a distorted body image can cause them to over-criticize their appearance and start finding flaws, even if they don't really exist. In the Middle Ages and before, most of the people living in small local settlements, such as villages and towns in some countries in Europe, did not have mirrors in their homes. The people who did keep mirrors covered them after dark or put them in places like haystacks or basements. The most common idea was that a person who looked into a mirror for a long time at night would go crazy or see paranormal beings. Even back then, a broken mirror was considered a harbinger of a curse, so if it broke for any reason, it was immediately burned. Another belief was that if a person was looking into a mirror and it broke on its own, death was very near. There is no exact source for all these stories and beliefs, but it is a fact that it continues as a phobia to this day. Fear of puppets and dolls. In fact, the fear of puppets and dolls encompasses two different but related phobias called pediophobia and automatonophobia, respectively. As I said before, the main reason why such a fear exists is because our brains are unable to perceive emotions. Interestingly, these phobias are common not only in children, but also in adults as a result of traumatic experiences. Traumatic experiences are usually the puppets or dolls they played with as children, which can give them experiences that can be extremely frightening. For example, when you sleep in your bed at night, the pain of the light reflecting on the puppet from anywhere can make it look scary, and waking up and suddenly seeing such a puppet causes phobia in that person. According to a theory called uncanny valley, when human-like objects reach a certain level of realism, even small differences can evoke fear or discomfort. In the past, dolls and puppets have been used for various purposes. For example, in ancient Egyptian and Greek cultures, dolls and puppets were both playthings and objects used in religious ceremonies. In the 19th century, mechanical dolls and puppets became popular in Europe, and while such objects intrigued people, they were also frightening to some. Moreover, a series of events that still remain mysterious, and which subsequently inspired horror movies, played a major role in the spread of the phobia. For example, the ventriloquist puppet in the 1945 film Dead of Night, the 1988 film Child's Play, and the 2014 film Annabelle have all contributed to the fear of puppets in popular culture. Fear of beautiful women. Yes, you didn't hear that wrong. According to research, 50 out of every 100 men are afraid of being with beautiful women, but they can't help but admire them. So what's there to be afraid of, you may be saying? According to research, one of the most common reasons is that some men, when they are in a relationship with a beautiful woman, feel a sense of inadequacy in the relationship because their self-confidence is diminished and they become deeply anxious. If a man is aware that a woman is more qualified, and in such a situation, the woman thinks that she is superior to the man starts to feel uncomfortable in the long run, because they think that the beautiful woman they have might cheat on them, or end their relationship when they least expect it, and all of these fears manifest themselves as venustrophobia. Therefore, men who experience these fears usually prefer women who they think are more suitable for them, who they think can be loyal to them, and who they can dominate. These were the phobias that I found most interesting in terms of their stories. Now a few examples of other interesting phobias. Serophobia. It is the fear of being happy. It is a phobia that stems from the belief that if a person is too happy, something bad will happen to them. This is also expressed in the phrase, "He who laughs too much, cries too much." Bibliophobia. This is the phobia of being afraid of books. Throughout history, many illiterate people have hated books, and some have developed this phobia. Decatrioparaskivophobia is a phobia caused by superstitious beliefs about the 13th of the month falling on a Friday. Chronometrophobia. This is a phobia of being afraid of clocks. In fact, people with this phobia avoid anything that reflects the passage of time. If you want to see the full list of phobias, I have left the Wikipedia source link below. Finally, let me talk about an interesting fear that affected me very briefly as a child, about 4 or 5 days. Fear of sleep, hypnophobia. The reason for my fear was that after a few nightmares, I was afraid that if I went back to sleep, I would have another nightmare. Fortunately, I fell asleep involuntarily and never had that nightmare again. Yes, as you can see, events and objects that should not be feared can sometimes become the center of your life for no guarantee at all. If you have an interesting phobia, write about it in the comments.